Hi. So we have a large panel here. So we're going to let our director introduce everyone. Once again, please welcome up Aneesh Chaganty.
Thank you, guys. We got a lot of USC grads coming. I'm about to introduce right now, all of whom worked on this movie in insane ways. So actually, I don't know where I'm supposed to. I'll start on this side, I guess. So the first one I want to introduce is my closest creative collaborator. He's the co-writer of the movie, the lead creative producer of the movie, and my overall mentor and guide. Please welcome Seb Ohanian. The next person I want to bring up is basically our other lead producer, who basically was in the room with us. Like I mentioned earlier that there were like 5 people for 2 years in a single edit room editing. She was the other creative producer, basically handling the logistics of everything, took a Word document that Seb and I wrote that was supposed to be called a script and turned it into something that was shootable. Please welcome Natalie Qasabian. Next, I'm going to introduce our co-producer, who was, again, on the ground every single day, handling every piece of BS that came up in her way and did it like a boss. Please welcome Kang Yu Yi. The next 2 USC grads, I think once this movie comes out, I will be, again, shouting from every rooftop for every single award that they deserve to win. Please welcome the editors of the movie, Will Merrick and Nick Johnson. This was my first movie that I ever made, and on set, having a first assistant director who actually knew what she was doing to help guide me the whole way was an incredibly helpful experience, and I couldn't have asked for someone better than Carly Sturgeon. Please welcome Carly Sturgeon on stage. And if you guys know what 310 is, my 310 partner, who was my DP at the time, Juan Sebastian Barron, is the DP of this film. Please welcome Juan Sebastian Barron. And then, last but not least, our music composer, a guy that I worked with while I was at SC, and who apparently also scored every other movie that every other student was making at the same time. Please welcome Torin Borrowdale. And then, yeah. And actually last, again, this is such a special screening for us to be here at USC. This honestly feels like a homecoming. This is very rare for all of us. It's actually the first time that we have this many people doing a Q&A. We wanted to make sure it was special. So we also brought John Cho, our lead actor. So please welcome him on stage. Yeah, that's it. That's the USC crew that could make it tonight. Huh? Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Oh, yeah. And, of course, I'm introducing the moderators as well. I'm going to introduce John Watson, our moderator, who also's name is in the film. He was the volunteer, like the kid who was just like, he's like, yeah, I really feel like they could use my support. The kid's name in the news interview was John Watson, named after Mr. John Watson. That's yours, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Not that it matters.
Is this one on? Is it on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
This is so cool.
Is this a record for how many USC people are in a Q&A here?
Definitely. So it was worth the wait. Let me tell you. I've been trying to get to see this movie for a long time. It was the coolest idea that I remember these guys telling me about when we were in Sundance, like, I don't know, 2 years ago. And they invited me to a preview screening, and I set off, and it was one of those impossible LA traffic days, and I called Seb and said, I'm going to be about half an hour late. And he went, okay, forget it. Actually, he was much more gracious than that, but I didn't get to see it, and then I begged him to bring the finished film to my class, and he played hard to get, but here we are, and it was certainly worth the wait. What a fabulous movie, and I'm so proud of you, all of you. It's amazing. It's so unique. So in terms of trying to ask questions, it's like hard to know where to begin because everything about it is different. I mean, you broke every single rule, I think. So, start with you two. I mean, how did you come up with the idea? How did this start? What was the beginning?
Oh man, the beginning for us was actually something called 480. You guys know what that is? It's a class. I was a TA in the 480 class, and Aneesh was a student in it, and he was a producing student.
Yeah, we were doing a project, and Nick and Sebastian were the DPs on this project, but I was the producer on it, and I met Sev when he was my TA in the 480 class.
And then I remember there was always this like one student in the class who was like had so much energy and like intelligence, and like I could tell they were going to be a great filmmaker, great director one day, and I wanted to work with them. But they didn't want to work with me, so I ended up having to work with Aneesh instead. I'm totally kidding. But like honestly, Aneesh was that student, and we totally gravitated towards each other, and we kind of formed this friendship, and we eventually became basically writing partners. We got in touch after we graduated and started working on some projects together, and next thing you knew, we were writing a script together, and we ended up making this little Google Glass short that Will and Torin worked on. Have you guys seen Seeds that Aneesh directed? It's awesome, yeah.
Wow. Applause.
And I think those are all my students, actually, who I showed
Okay.
in my class.
Yeah.
And basically, that got Aneesh a job at Google, where he was writing and directing commercials at Google for 2 years. And in the meanwhile, I was in LA producing indie films, and I got this opportunity to meet with this company called Basilev's, that Timur Bekmambetov is the principal founder of the company. They had made a movie called Unfriended. Have you guys seen Unfriended? So it's also a movie that takes place on a computer screen. When I had the meeting with the company, they had just released it theatrically, and it had made a ton of money. And they were asking me if I knew any good filmmakers who I can bring into the company so we can kind of develop some similar computer screen ideas. Of course, I thought of Aneesh because of his Google stuff, and we were good partners, but it wasn't for a feature film.
It was for a short. It was for like an anthology film. So when I came in, they were basically like, we want to make a feature film, but it's going to be comprised of a bunch of short films, all of which take place on computer screens. And my initial thought was like, thank God, I will never make a feature film on a computer screen. That sounds super lame. So basically, like, I left LA. I was living in New York at the time, and about a month and a half goes by, and one day Sev and I start texting each other what ends up being the idea for the short film version of Search, the
8
original
minutes,
title.
like literally
yeah,
the
8 minutes long, just super short, not a gimmick, really cool, something that would hold your attention. And we were like, oh, this is awesome. So we sent back a pitch that was like a few pages long to the company. I happened to be in LA for a Google photo shoot. They call us in again, and all of a sudden, like, we're sitting across like a board of people, like of financiers, of producers, and it's Sev and I, and we're like confused a little bit. And the first thing they go is like, listen, we love your idea, but we don't want to make it.
So we were kind of bummed. We're like, all right, well, why are we here then? And they said, we'd rather make it as a feature film. And you guys, Sev, you'll produce it, Aneesh will direct it as your first feature. You guys will write it. We'll pay you guys. We'll finance the movie. What do you guys say?
And I said no. Literally in a single moment, I was just like, no, there's no way. And it was one of the weirdest moments of my life because I remember thinking, like, why did I just say that? Like, whoever gets this opportunity? And Sev is like underneath, like right next to me, but like underneath the table is like starting to kick me, like look at me really strangely, like, what are you doing? But in the moment, it felt like we would be taking a concept and a gimmick that we found a way to not be a gimmick in 8 minutes and stretching it right back into a 90-minute gimmick again. We'd be making a movie because another movie was a hit rather than like our movie having any artistic merit to exist. So for a lot of reasons, we said no in that moment. And Sev said, we'll keep in touch. And I said, no. And Sev's like, we'll keep in touch. So we left, and we kept talking about how enormous of an opportunity this was and how rare it was for any first-time filmmaker anywhere to get that kind of an offer, regardless of the type of film that you were being asked to make. So we kept talking about it, and we're like, let's just talk about it. If we hit a wall, we hit a wall. We won't feel bad. We'll say no, but let's talk about it. And about a month later, I was in New York at the time, and I remember texting Sev and being like, hey, I have a random idea for an opening scene. Do you have a time for a call? And he goes, weird, I have an idea for an opening scene. Do you have time for a call? And we're like, yeah. So we call each other up on the phone, and we pitch each other the exact same opening scene, which is the opening scene of the movie, which is the 7-minute like opening montage that's sort of like Pixar's Up meets a Google commercial. So like all of a sudden in that sequence, when we were talking to one another about it, it suddenly felt like way beyond a gimmick. To us, it suddenly felt like engaging and emotional and cinematic.
Like, our goal with that opening scene was if we can do that right, people would just forget after 5 minutes that what they're watching is taking place on a computer screen. And that was kind of what motivated us to go back to the company. We presented the longer version of the movie, and we basically signed on to make this film.
And I quit my job and moved back to LA.
Do you regret it?
No, I was wondering for a long time. I was like, did I make the right decision? It was like Google. I was in New York. I was like 24 years old at the time. And then to jump back into like indie filmmaking was just like, what am I doing? And then, but you know, after seeing the response and everything, it's been so worth it. So that's how it started.
Well, we're going to get back to you guys, but I know we could talk to you for an hour and a half, and I've had you both in my class. I know how much you love to talk. But we got all these fabulous people who are involved in the movie here, so I'm going to throw some questions to them. John, I can understand why they wanted you in the movie, but why the hell did you want to do this movie? First-time director, all on computer. I mean, how did they talk you into it?
Well, initially, first of all, thanks for coming. Thank you for taking time out of your lives to come and see a movie for free. But initially, he didn't talk me into it, and I also said no. I read the script, and I really loved the script. The idea of putting it on computer, on devices was an obstacle that I initially felt was not going to work. And so I didn't really see my way through it. But I think it was partially because we didn't meet in person. We spoke over the phone. And so I just didn't get there over that phone call. And then I met Aneesh. Later, he came back at me. And we met, and he showed me some stuff. But really, it was his force of personality. I felt, first of all, I liked him a lot, and then I just felt that he was someone I could follow. And if this could be done, I felt like maybe this person is the person that can do it. It was a question mark, and I didn't really know how this sort of thing gets done. I mean, I just really didn't. It was, the apparatus was so unfamiliar to me, and all the tools were totally unfamiliar to me, that I couldn't see how it could be done. But I said yes after that, and even after we finished shooting, I felt good about what we shot, but so much of the movie was assembled after principal photography. I mean, the sets were built after we shot, and the lighting was, designed after we shot, and so many characters were created after we shot in all those pages. So it was very unusual, but glad I said yes. I was just peeing, and if you pee at the right time after a movie is over, you get like great review time. If you're in the stall. Heard some great urinal reviews in there.
Okay.
That's great.
Natalie, I want to jump to you. So when Aneesh introduced you, he said that he gave you some document that wasn't really a screenplay, but somehow you turned it into a screenplay. Or what was that process?
No, I made them go back and do their work again. But because it's so unconventional, these guys thought rightly so that, writing a traditional screenplay might, be a little bit, tedious to read. Interior Facebook, like that's kind of lame to read. So they wrote basically a 50-page Word document, which I'm assuming most of you in here know what a script looks like. Looks nothing like an actual screenplay. So they called me when they were done, like, we're ready to budget this thing, let's schedule this thing, let's make this thing. And they emailed me a 50-page Word document. And I was like, I can't do anything with this. So I literally looked at them and was like, we need to translate this into final draft. And then I said, no, you guys. So just basically representative of my role in this relationship. I'm kind of here to crack the whip on them.
You're the disciplinarian.
I am,
you force
yeah.
them into being real filmmakers.
Exactly.
Okay, Kong Yu, how did you get involved, and what was your initial role and response to the material?
So it all goes back to USC, I guess. This is Seven, Natalie, and my fourth feature working together, I believe, since we graduated 2014 for the two of us. I know someone from the graduate school who was doing her feature directorial debut in LA, and Sev was a producer. So that's how I met Sev, and after that, Sev brought me on to the next 3-4 features I've worked on. Even today, everyone I worked with can somehow link back to these two people, really.
I mean, I gotta be honest, Kong Yu was my producer's assistant on a movie I did, and she did that once or twice, and this was this was her first producing credit. And we gave it to her because she did such an incredible job. She like went so far and above, and it was like literally without her, we wouldn't be sitting here today.
So Sebastian, our DP, so this presented an unusual challenge. I know you had a history with these guys, but what was your response to this, and how did you set about doing it?
No, yeah, it was really hard. I mean, only in the sense that, again, we were doing everything. Baslevs had done Unfriended, so they had kind of done something similar before. There's a lot of, unique challenges to getting the actors to see each other on screen. I mean, I remember the first time that we shot with John, and we have these contraptions that have GoPros attached to fake laptops, and we sat them in the room, and we're like, all right, you're gonna look here, and you're gonna have this earwig, and you're gonna listen to the other actor, and yeah. So from day one, I think Carly sometimes was like, how long is this gonna take? And we're like, these computers don't want to turn on right now. So there were a lot of technical challenges that we figured out, but I mean, I think even from when Aneesh did the Google Glass project, we were in my apartment trying to figure out how the glasses worked and how we could best take advantage of the technology. And then, when we did 310, I think we were the first class that used the Sony X1. So we were figuring out, man, how do we make this? How do we tell a story with this? And then it was like, how do we tell a story with the Google Glass? And then it was just a natural evolution to how do we tell a story with this really unique technology. And then iPhones, and there were so many different cameras that we used to get all the different looks and the period elements to make it feel like it was real. Because from day one, Aneesh's vision was, I wanted to make this as relatable and real, and not something that a studio would come in and try to play it really safe. And
I mean, we shot with this thing. On 4 days. This is our A cam. Literally this iPhone 6. And we had a weird mic thing on top of it, and then the wires to connect to Video Village, and people were walking around with this thing. I have all the footage still on my Google Photos.
Yeah, and so much. I mean, John operated almost every shot with some of our older cameras and the camcorder, because we just knew that was the best way to make it feel real. So many of the photos, because we had to really generate almost every piece of media in this project. I mean, a lot of people donated pictures and really filled up the world, but still, there were so many times where it was like, oh man, we forgot we have to get this one picture to fit in this one thumbnail.
Some of those people are here, by the way. Yeah. Thank you.
There's
to
a lot of
all the
people here.
friends and family. Seriously, half of you are on this side.
How many of you guys saw yourself in the movie tonight? Anyone? Long, I see you.
Raise your hand, Gabby. I see you.
Look closer. You're in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, one moment I remember looking at the screen and thinking there were a few thousand images on the screen, and every single one of them had to be generated somehow.
Yeah, definitely a few thousand. High few thousands.
Definitely didn't have enough days to generate all of them.
And then you have to get the rights of every single photo of the people in it, the people the subject, the person who took it, the person who owns it.
The names.
Yeah, their names. Took forever.
So, Carly, this is a unique challenge for an AD.
Yeah, it was fun.
How many days did you shoot? How did you break it down? How did you approach it?
We only did 13 days, so there were definitely days where we had I think it was at least 10 pages, if not more, every day. I think there was even a 20-page day, which was just crazy, because going into that as an AD and everyone's like, can we do this? And I'm like, no.
How many pages did you say?
There was a 20-page day.
Oh, okay.
which in my world is not a thing. So the fact that we did it was cool. It was also like kudos to Seb and Aneesh for being so specific on what they wanted. I think just because there were so many things that were on different elements and different like photos that we had to get, different thumbnails that we had to get, and we had such limited time that if that was in any sort of flux of like, well, yeah, maybe we get this too, and maybe we get this too, but it was very much like, here are the things we need, and it was very cut and dry for me, so it made it a lot easier, especially with like how many pages and how much content we had to get each day. So thank you guys for not changing it on the fly all the time.
So, editors. Hey, Will, how you doing?
Hi, John.
So Nick and Will, certainly a unique editing challenge. This was not 13 days in the cutting room. This was 13 months in the cutting room.
Actually, that's almost exactly right, yeah. And we started about 7 weeks before shooting. We'd built a full cut of the movie before production began. It was a pretty weird process, yeah.
It was a really weird process, yeah.
Had you ever done anything before that remotely prepared you for this challenge?
No. It was like
Writing?
What?
Writing?
Yeah, maybe writing. I mean, it was the whole process was, very novel. Like we started with rehearsals with the editors, like going over to Aneesh's house and talking through the script. What is this even going to look like? Like there was literally a line that was like, and then a cacophony of images bursts onto the screen, and you're like.
The script was brilliant, by the way.
Yeah.
There were just a couple moments like this.
Like, what does a cacophony of images look like? Yeah, and then we cut the movie for 7 weeks. Then we got footage, which were just like in our worlds, just another asset that we had to put in there. And then we were editing, and nothing in this is screen recorded. So we basically, it's just an animated movie essentially.
How does a finished movie compare to the finished script?
Script or animatic?
Huh?
Like the script or like the screenplay? It's similar except
You follow
in some
the same
specifics.
story. The story was
Oh yeah,
the same.
all of the
Yeah.
story is pretty much identical. It's just smoothed things here and there. We changed lines.
And what was great was like we were able to iron out, say, like the first act before going into principal photography. That way we saved ourselves a lot of reshoots because we were able to literally construct the entire movie and see is it working, is it playing.
Yeah, it's weird. The first 6 months or so, we really had to make all of our story decisions, and we really had to live with them for the entire rest of the edit, where we were kind of animating. So we wanted to put a lot of effort into making sure they were right.
So how much of it was done on the editing equipment as opposed to? Do you have any VFX? I didn't
Well,
remember
so
seeing
yeah, it was
VFX credits on the movie. Maybe there were.
It was maybe like half editing, like in Premiere. And while we were working in Premiere, I mean, our computers were crashing constantly, and everything was nested. So it was incredibly blurry. You couldn't really see what you're doing. It would take forever. And then we basically ported all of that into After Effects, and then finished the movie, basically overcut the movie with Illustrator files.
Right. Cool. So Torin, how did you get involved in this, and when?
Yeah, so I read the script about 2 years ago, and from the opening montage, since the piano is so important, I wanted to do a duet between the mother and daughter, so you could kind of hear Margot's progression as a piano player, and then so it starts out with her playing the theme over and over again. She gets better and better, and then by the end, the mom's part fades away, and you're left with Margot just playing the piano by herself. So that was the initial plan for it. It was probably the hardest piece I've ever had to write, because I had to write it a number of times. We had one version that we completed, passed the whole score using this one theme, and then we decided to change it.
We did.
Yeah. So we had to redo the whole opening montage, basically chunk by chunk, And then any other time in the movie where that theme was used, we had to replace it. But I think the updated version speaks for itself. Yeah.
Cool. So you finish this movie and you like it, but you had to figure out what you've got, right? So you applied to Sundance just without any sense of whether you were going to get in or not. You just took a plunge, got it in, and then what happened?
I mean, Sundance was like, I mean, I've wanted to go to Sundance ever since I started watching Entourage, since, like in high school, and I was like, whoa, Sundance, sick. You know, it was unbelievable because, like I was saying in the beginning, you know, we made this movie with such few resources and with such a tight-knit group of people, and you know, I felt like we had just lucked our way into Sundance. And you know, even if you told me that we were playing in the Park City Distillery at like 8 p.m., I would have still told people we were at Sundance. You know, so on top of that, to be actually at Sundance, playing opening weekend at like a big theater, we knew for once we would actually have like a full theater of people to see this movie, and we always thought like maybe 5 people would see it, but here we had like 100, like I don't know, 500 people I think that opening night to watch the movie, and then we present this movie, this like our little weird movie, at 6:30 p.m. And then by 6:45 a.m., Sony Pictures had just won a bidding war and got rights to distribute the movie. And it was just like the craziest 12 hours, because like the whole time I was just like, I think my life is changing right now, but I can't really feel it. And you know, it was just like we showed the movie, and like we went to the after party and everybody was there, and like all the excitement, and everyone was like buzzing, and the reviews were good, and we're like, holy shit, and we were checking Twitter. That's when basically my Twitter addiction started. It was at Sundance, just like looking up the hashtag. And then at one point, like some agents come to us and we're like 45 minutes in, they're like, we have to go. I was like, what do you mean we have to go? And they're like, we have to go, it's starting. And I was like, oh my God, it's starting. And so we all left the room and went to another cabin where there were like these agents there, and all this was new to me. And we were literally in a cabin for, I don't know, like 8 hours or something, while the agents duked it out with all these companies that were bidding on the movie, and like we would hear back like what the offers were and what we were going back to them. It was like this crazy cool process that ended up with a distribution deal, and yeah, it was so surreal. It was like the coolest 12 hours ever. I don't know how else to describe it.
And so tell us about what are the release plans now? You're going to open next month, you said?
Yeah, it'll be releasing on August 24th.
Yeah.
It would be like a good platform release. Like I think it's like 100 screens or so around the country. And then the very next week, which is Labor Day weekend, it opens wide, every single theater on the planet, within America.
Yeah.
But
minus a tiny few.
But all throughout August, and it's kind of crazy. Like all throughout August and September, the movie's opening in every country, like literally on the planet. And what's crazy is we edited this film for 1.5 years with those 2 guys on like 2 iMacs that like you would maybe buy your kids to do homework on, and it would crash every 20 minutes. And you know that you guys seen that like rainbow thing? You're like, we'd be praying to the rainbow god to like not
we were
delete
so
our,
religious
like,
during the editing
like
of this
please
movie.
God, like don't delete our footage, and it would always delete our footage. And then now like these 2 guys are in charge of 30 other people with like 50 computers, and they're translating the movie into every language in the world. It's crazy.
Translating this movie, by the way, is an absolute nightmare. Think about every single line of text. All of that has to change into a different language.
It's like in German now. It's
and
weird.
every time, like the characters change, like the number, like a word changes, the number of characters in it changes, and the sounds are all perfectly matched to all of those characters. It's an absolute nightmare, and these guys are leading the charge.
Yeah.
Much to their happiness.
We'll walk you through it later.
So I suspect that there are quite a few questions out there. Does anybody want to throw the hand up? Speak nice and loud, or we can have a walking microphone down there maybe. Yeah, second row.
So I got a question about the script. So I liked how this movie was not only about Asian Americans and not only set in San Jose, which has a ton of Asian Americans, but I liked also how they weren't like the only Asian Americans in the movie, because you see like a lot of social media in this movie, and you see a lot of names, and even the names, there's still like a lot of Asian Americans like at the school and things like that. So I'm wondering, how active were you guys in that effort when you wrote the script? So like, did you write that like the characters were Asian American in the script and the extras were Asian American? How active were you about that?
So the question is how deliberate, how active were they in including Asian Americans and Asian American names in the movie? Yeah.
The side characters, the ones that you're seeing on the side that don't affect the direct storyline, were not in the script because that would just make the script 500 pages long. It was an active kind of thought process to kind of go into it. I grew up in San Jose, so like, you know, making sure that everyone represented in there like looked and sounded like the people that I kind of went to school with was an important thing from the beginning. But talking specifically about, you know, the Asian American casting in the movie, you know, I think both of us, all of us, kind of grew up watching movies, you know, where we never saw ourselves kind of in as the main characters. And for me, it's like, I think stories that are about race and about culture are very important, and I have those stories and I want to tell those stories. But when I was a kid, I never saw those movies and thought I wish I was in those. I saw like Mission Impossible, I saw Born Supremacy, I saw the action movies and the mysteries and the thrillers, and I was like, I wish I was in one of those movies. So, and those movies never dealt with race or culture. They were just like, had nothing to do with the skin color of the person who was in it. So from the beginning, you know, in the script, we wrote it for John Cho. It was David Kim in the script. And ultimately, when people would ask us why are we casting an Asian American in this movie, because there are no Asian American themes in the movie, we would just answer why not.
Why not?
Yeah.
Also, I want to give a shout out, by the way. You know, you mentioned that like a lot of the extras and all the side characters, you know, are like reflect different diverse, you know, people from different diverse backgrounds. The truth is, like, this is a low-budget film, so we had to use all of our friends and family, and it's basically all of our friends and family. Also, actually, the woman who plays the piano teacher is here. I want to give her a quick shout-out. Miss Sylvia Manassian, can you stand up and just take a bow? Like, speaking of an Armenian woman, she's actually not an actress, and we, like, kind of coerced her to doing it, and then we found out we had to pay her because it's, like, a SAG thing. So like she asked us if we can make it a charity donation, and we couldn't. So sorry that we ended up paying you, but thank you.
May I add to that? You were asking earlier about Sundance, and that was probably the most unexpected aspect of Sundance. For me, you know, we were at America's premier film festival showing this movie, and it was this packed theater, and I knew I was very proud of the movie, and I knew it was effective. I'd seen it, and I felt that it was going to connect with people, but what I didn't expect in myself was how notable it felt that it was an Asian American, or it was a family that looked suspiciously like mine, especially the dad. And how crazy it would feel to show that at Sundance, you know, and a lot of times I feel like Asian families are shown as, or the culture gets in the way of Asian people loving one another. You know, the daughter must escape her oppressive family in order to find love. But this was a family, you know, that loved one another and was made whole. And thematically, I thought that was very important. And that felt like an important part of the filmmaking, and it feels like an important part of the product. Aneesh's dad said something at that after party. You gotta tell me if I get this right. He said, "Family, we all dance on the ladder that's held on the shoulders
That's supported by family.
That's supported by family."
I was like, damn, Dad.
Yeah. It's the greatest thing I've ever heard in an after party. Or in a urinal.
All right, let's get another question. Lady in the front.
Okay, so obviously, like, you guys have broken a lot of filmmaking rules and, like, kind of movies, but there's also a lot of, like typical cinematic movies, like using close-ups to, like really punctuate attention and stuff, so I was wondering how you guys decided to, like, navigate between, like, breaking off and doing everything and also, like, following what you have in
Will and Nick, you want to take that?
I think Aneesh always emphasized to us that even though we're telling it on a computer screen and in a super unconventional way, we're trying to tell a very normal kind of like old school narrative with all the right plot points, all the right, everything like that. So, I mean, the structure and the shot design, our goal was really just to be as much like a normal movie as possible, and in getting there, we did all the weird stuff.
Right. And I think that was always the goal. I think it took us a little while to understand and develop the language and kind of establish our own conventions. Like, you know, you're on a two-dimensional plane, so you can't, you know, get coverage that way. So we had to understand that, you know, you can, you know, jump into a close-up and then out to a wide and just treat it like a shot reverse that way. And also, you know, these movies, screen movies have been made before, but generally speaking, they take place in a wide, like Unfriended. It's all just one wide, spatially and temporally. It's just continuous. So that was, you know, that was also one thing. Our first cut, we were really relying on wides, and Sev and Sebastian came in and were like, guys, what are you guys doing? Like, let's make a movie, you know? Let's cut. So yeah.
Yeah, I think what was really unique about this that I've never done on a movie before is that in pre-production, we had the editors in pre-production. You know, it's not something that happens. And so we had a lot of conversations, and we talked a lot. It was a lot of like philosophical conversations too about like
Totally
why are
unrelated to
we
the movie.
doing this? Like, yeah. But it set up a really good workflow so that when we, you know, a lot of it, it's all in the script too, but it set up a good workflow so that we knew what we were doing ahead of time.
Somebody said though that somebody recently observed though that the first half of the movie typically is more of the coverage is in wides, but we did the opposite. We were in close-ups for the first couple acts really, and then in the third act, when the tension gets high, we pop out to more wides as we go to news coverage and all of that. So it was a little bit flipped.
Never knew that. That's cool.
Also, one thing is that the animatic is something that helped a ton because there is a version of this movie where Aneesh plays every character.
Yeah. The editors didn't really talk about it. This is one of the craziest things that they did. So literally, the editors were the first people we hired on this movie, and 7 weeks before we even shot a single frame on production, we came in, showed them a blank timeline, and we're like, go. And so literally what they started doing was like screen capturing the internet and like putting it into a Premiere timeline, doing text messages, screen recording themselves, and like punching in and zooming out. And by the end of 7 weeks, we had an hour and 40-minute cut of the whole movie, starring me playing like the mom, the daughter, the brother, the dad, the detective, all the friends. And so like, because essentially there's two cameras in the movie, right? There's like the camera in the world, like the footage, like Skype footage, there's webcam footage, all that shit. And then there's the way that we're framing it. And we needed to understand how those two play with each other. So we needed to make this movie, or that version of it. And then it was also extremely crucial because like when John's on set, he's the one operating the laptop in the world of the movie. So he needs to know where every single button is, where his eye line is shifting, where if he says a line, sometimes I would literally go to him and be like, John, that was a perfect take. Just next time you move your cursor a little more to the left. You know, and it's just like, that was an entirely, that was done in 7 weeks of pre-production. Or like we had a joke on set that was like usually a movie is like pre-production, production, and post-production, that we had pre-post, post, and post-post on this movie. But it was an insane animatic that Will and Nick put together that was extremely crucial. Sorry, Sebastian, for interrupting. Continue.
No, but it's like the version where you play every character is one of the best things I've ever seen.
I don't know if you
DVD
guys will ever see
bonus-
that, but
bonus features,
someone's trying to get it onto the Blu-ray, and then someone's trying to stop that from happening as well.
Hey, Natalie, I want to get back to you for a second. Tell us about some of the biggest challenges of mounting this production.
Oh man, how much time do you have? I mean, honestly, I think for everyone on here, like sitting up here and everyone on set, I think the biggest challenge was we were creating something where we didn't have a reference for it. And I think everyone, you know, in a way had to like relearn their craft. And it really felt like, you know, we'd get on track and then, you know, we'd stumble and we'd have to like, you know, convene and just rework workflows. I mean, literally down to the script. Like it looked different, everything looked different. So I think it was constantly just, you know, keeping everyone on course and in a way giving each other the confidence that at the end, and a lot of that came from these guys and from their leadership, but just being confident in the fact that we knew we could achieve it, even though we didn't know that. I think that was the hardest thing at the end of the day, and doing all that with very, very little money, just never easy. Very few days, like Carly said. 13 days to shoot a film is just insane. So it was quick. There wasn't time. Aneesh didn't have time with his actors to prep. It was really made in post. Right. So we had no time on set to deliberate at all. It was go, go, go.
Right. Carly, Kong, you got anything to add to that in terms of?
I mean, we shot this film in 2016, November, and since that, I've worked on a few slightly higher budget projects, and the work the three of us do is equivalent to like a team of 15 people, like at the very, very least. We worked so hard on this film.
Kong used 10 people.
We basically managed every aspect of this film. We have like a tracking record of everything. Actually, we were just talking about it like 2 months ago. We received an email from our clearance people, send us a screenshot of the movie and say, who are these background actors? And when we received it, I was like, how am I ever gonna know the names? And now we just went back to our spreadsheet that we built for background. We had their names, their description, and we have so we figured out who they were. And I think they were just as surprised as I was that we could actually locate their names.
Carly, got any more anecdotes
Not
for us?
really. I just love Kong Yu's self-promotion that she's 10 people.
You agreed.
I do agree. I agree.
Any questions down here? I'll walk the microphone down.
I had a question for John. What was it? What was it like acting in this film? Like, were you able to see your scene partners and engaging with people that weren't maybe in the same physical space that you were in?
It was totally unprecedented for me. I found it very difficult. Michelle La, who plays Margot, is saying that she found it much easier, and I think there's a generational difference probably, that she's more accustomed to talking to people on FaceTime or whatever, but I found it very difficult. So what was happening was there was a feed. Was there always a feed? Not always, I feel like. Sometimes there was and sometimes there wasn't a feed. Like when I was shooting with Deborah, she was in another room and doing that so we could talk to one another, but it was every degree of remove made it exponentially harder, I felt. So if someone was on a computer screen, also that image was this small.
It's like a security camera feed.
Yeah, so it was like this small versus actual FaceTime can take up your whole screen. But so that was really hard. Not looking into a real live human being just made it insanely weird for me. And then there was an earwig, so that was an audio feed in my ear. It was just unusual. And then, if you've acted in front of a camera, you know how important eye lines are. And these eye lines were just, millimeters away from each other. And so that turned out, those are plot points, discovering something on the left side of your screen, but instead of doing this, what you might do in real life, it was just that. So you had to, anyway, I mean, it wasn't real work. It wasn't unloading a truck, but it was tricky, very, very tricky.
Yeah, and I think one thing is that the first scene that you had to do it on is in the movie. Like, there wasn't like days of rehearsals or prep. Like, you kind of just jumped in and went for it.
Yeah, I mean, we had some rehearsal, but did we? Yeah, we had some rehearsal, but it
wasn't like
with
tech
with
rehearsal.
the
it
computer
wasn't
and
with the
everything.
tech. So that was just really unusual. It was like doing. It was essentially my first movie.
Same.
Hey, I was wondering, just you can all work on this together, but what do you wish you had known in school that you know now?
Like in general? Like in life or just with this movie? With this movie, okay. That narrows it down. Long talk.
We haven't learned it yet.
Yeah, we haven't learned it.
Don't hire 2 editors, hire 400.
Okay. I'm thinking about this on the spot, so I haven't really. This is a bigger question. But I think, like, when I was in film school, I felt like a big, and I still feel it in a lot of ways, a big desire to know it all. Like I was always like the kid who I was like, oh, I'm gonna direct. And when you start off in production, there's like all 40 people want to direct, and by the end of it, there's like 8 or 9 real crazy ones that just still kind of want to do that. And like I was like, oh, I need to be perfect at lighting, I need to be perfect at framing, I need to be perfect at this and perfect at that. And like I think overall, like there was always this idea that I needed to be good at everything. And then I realize now that like what I can kind of still focus what I'm good at to a certain number of things. And what I picked was writing specifically, like with Seb, with story in general. And I realized that like if you write something good, if you write the right story, like the tools will kind of come from other people, and you'll still be able to kind of like give that vision across. So to still think holistically, but not like master everything is a pressure that I don't place on myself anymore. Pretty impressed with that answer right off the cuff.
I got something to add to that. No, sorry, everyone. I didn't go to acting school. However, I was a young actor once. And when I was younger, I think I was very preoccupied with making the director happy and making sure. And I felt that my performance was for them, for him or her. It was for the network. It was for the producers or whatever. And that was the goal. And as I've gotten older, I have shifted that a little bit and included myself, and your own, for the young actors out there, I feel like it's legitimate to want your performance to feel authentic for yourself, and that's okay.
I think we have time for one more, guys. We have
Matt, there's a girl in the back who keeps raising her hand enthusiastically. Yeah, her.
Hi. For the editors, why did you choose Premiere of all of the programs to work on?
Because it's the only software that could have done what we were trying to do.
It's the best one.
Yeah. I mean,
this has all
just
been an
kidding,
Adobe ad.
For this, yes.
Yeah. I mean, we were using Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects, Premiere. There was nothing that could compare to that. I mean, it still crashed every 5 minutes, but,
They did Unfriended in Final Cut 10. The only one that seems to be off the table for screen movies is Avid, which is a great editor, but
They cut Unfriended 1 in Avid, actually.
Oh.
Which
for
I
them.
can't imagine. Yeah.
We alienated about 90%
A sponsor
of
of
the
the school, just a reminder. Avid.
Oh yeah, Avid's great too.
Yeah, Avid's great. Avid's
Fantastic
great too. Yeah.
program.
We love Avid.
We're done.
Dynamic Link is why we used Premiere.
Get one more
Take as many.
technical.
We got quite a few.
Lady right there. Yeah.
My question is, when a movie like that takes so long to make in terms of the editing and the post-production part of it, how do you, number one, stay motivated through that process, and B, what is the impact of a process like that on your mental psyche or just, your mental
Oh boy, that was tough. You know, like, because this movie had no precedent, we could never even schedule out when we thought this was going to end. You know, when we were in November, when we were shooting this movie, we were so confident that by February it would be done. And then when we got to February, we're like, March, baby. And like, March, it was like, all right, June, early June, and we're going to summer break. And then June, it was like late July. And then July, it was August. And August, it was September. And September, it was October. And like, around March timeframe, you're in the middle of this thing. It's taking 10 minutes to see a single change in an edit, because in order to extend the amount of time John reacts to something, the editors have to make like 15 layers of changes in order to come and see that, and then the computer might crash. And you're just totally losing it because you don't know where there is an end. If there is an end, you're so in the forest. And on top of all the technical complexities, you have no idea if this thing is going to work at all, if this whole experiment's just going to be a massive failure. Honestly, I think the reason we were able to pull it off is because of the team as a collective unit. You know, like, being 5 of us, 5 people going crazy together is a lot easier than 1 person going crazy together, you know, or alone. And I think we were all kind of like supporting one another and kind of bringing each other up.
Major cabin fever, though, at times.
Yeah, a lot of cabin fever.
I mean, one thing I'll add is that like it was always work to be done. Like, it was hard to ever like sit there and think too much about all of this, because just as an example, like, I mean, you guys obviously just saw the movie. Like, you guys obviously saw the main plot, but I'm sure you guys noticed on the side there's all these other text messages and emails and Facebook. Like, we were constantly writing and creating like one of my favorite subplots is if, like, at the beginning of the movie, if you notice, he has all these text messages open when he's texting Margot, and there's a text from a woman named Hannah, who I think her and David had gone on an eHarmony date a week before, and she was like, hey, I had great drinks last night, would you like to get together again? And then, like, a few scenes later, she's texting, hey, want to just follow up, would you like to get dinner with me? And then, like, in the middle of the movie, she's like, oh, your daughter is missing, I understand now, maybe next week? Like, so, like, when we started losing our minds from having to like populate this entire damn movie, we just started having fun with it. And like all throughout it, I think at one point the editors got revenge on me because they put like a little Easter egg about me in there somewhere.
Did any of you guys catch the Hollywood producer prime suspect in Murder of Editors? Little ticker at the bottom.
My bad.
Literally, like, the crazy thing about this movie is, like, the script is like however many number of pages, but if you calculate the amount of copy and text on the side, like every Finder window, every Gmail email inbox, every text message, every single line of text everywhere, it's about 25 to 30 times the amount of script that we had in general. It was a massive amount of just additional writing that we had to do. Everything from, like, you know, when you type in a website and like you could type in google.com, G, and all the drop down of all the other websites that you've been on that start with the letter G. Every single piece of text in this movie that you see has been written for this movie. So it was like a massive amount of work that we were able to do, I guess, to also keep ourselves from going crazy. But yeah,
that
never
guy wrote
again.
most of it himself while we were editing. You just sat down and wrote hundreds of pages of copy.
Yeah, it would like I said, it would take 10 minutes to see a cut. They'd be like, all right, let's extend let's extend John's space. Let me spend 20 minutes now writing all the G's on the Chrome autofill text document.
Is that it? Okay. Well, thank you all so much.
We'll be around here. Thank you.
On behalf of the School of Cinematic Arts, I'm incredibly proud to have had a chance to show this movie and to have so many alumni here. It's a big moment in time for the school as well as for all of you. So thank you. I'm very proud to be associated with it.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and guys, real quick, if you guys like the movie, a couple things that we could use your help on if you liked it. If you don't, totally ignore this. Keep walking to the door. If you want to like tweet about it or post about it on social media, use #searchingmovie. And one thing I think is really cool is we're going to be using a lot of tweets that you guys send out, and we're going to be using it in the commercials, in the trailers, on posters and stuff. So use the #searchingmovie and #searchmyreview. Like literally both of those, searching movie and search my review, and then write whatever you want. on like any form of social media, and we can put it in the commercials if you want to make it in there. But again, only if you liked it. Don't shit on the movie.